about this? We go to Optus, and just for the second time this season, the Eagles drop a game at home as the Bulldogs absolutely tear through them. And the week of quarantine had... you would not be able to tell that they spent a lot of their time in the hotel room this week, I'll tell you that much. And while West Coast, they did keep it close until about halfway through the fourth quarter, and then it was just all Bulldogs at that point, and the game was over in a heartbeat. The thing here is that it's going to be really hard to beat this Bulldogs team. Like Donnie, you mentioned a couple of games ago that they're starting to almost heat up again defensively. That midfield starting to pick things back up. That backline starting to pick things up, and they're looking like the scary team that they were at the beginning of the season when they're still undefeated. And especially when you have guys like Bontempelli and Naughton combining for 7 goals, that's going to be a tough thing to defend against. And it also doesn't help when the Eagles' top stars, and like that big three that they kind of rely upon, was pretty damn quiet, almost similar to what the Geelong Cats' big three looked like this year. Their top scorer ended up being Oscar Allen, but he only had a couple here. I think he also had one behind on that one. And while West Coast, they're still 4 points above the number 8 team in Richmond, they don't have an easy schedule to round out their season. Because, well, their next game, Sydney, that's the one I'm really excited about. Of course, we'll get to that in our tipping. They do have a decent stretch between North Melbourne, Adelaide, and St Kilda, but then you have a team that I'm always worried about in Collingwood. You got Melbourne, you got Fremantle probably playing for their finals lives at this point, and then you finish off the season against Brisbane. That's a tough stretch, especially those last 3 games. So it's going to be interesting to see if the West Coast Eagles are able to pick it up in the next round, get a little momentum, so they can avoid falling out of this top 8 in the last 8 rounds that we got this season.
This was just a game where I almost go, did West Coast jump the gun with some of their bringbacks? Did they bring back some of these guys as to quote the Aussie vernacular, underdone, or guys that weren't completely ready for AFL footy? And seeing this performance, there are parts of me that think maybe they did. Did Kelly come back early? Did Shuey come back too early? Is Yo really up to AFL standard when it comes to his fitness? We really don't know. And what isn't helping is the fact that 2 hours before this game was played in an empty stadium, so you had no Eagles fans at the game at all, empty stadium. I think that really balanced this game out. I think that I hate saying that the fans are a difference, but they are, especially in Optus Stadium, especially for the West Coast Eagles. I mean, their win against Richmond, I think if they play that behind closed doors, I think Richmond might actually have won that game if the fans weren't there. I think the fans really buoyed them big time. So this is a game that I do kind of say, I think West Coast were hurt a little bit by the fact they didn't have the fans. And like I said, I think they had a few guys on the field that were underdone. They weren't completely ready, and they kind of paid for it. I mean, and now the worst part is, like I said earlier with Sydney, is it sounds like Liam Ryan may be out this week due to suspension, due to a head-high contact in this game against the Bulldogs, and he's been a linchpin for them. Yes,
now, what do you think
talking
about that suspension real quick? I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want...
It's a head-high contact. It's hard to argue it.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that may help him out is the fact that the guy, unfortunately, in Aussie rules footy, and this is something I don't completely agree with, and Aussie fans in the comments, please let me know, what do you think of this? I hate this. It depends on what happens to the opponent. If the opponent gets hurt, then there's most likely a shot you'll get suspended. If they don't get hurt, you have a better chance of getting off. I think it should be the action that should be suspendable, not the outcome. And that's the most frustrating thing for me.
It should be, but it's almost like the optics alone of a hit. I feel like that might put pressure on the league for a harder suspension or punishment. Like, it could be the same amount of shoving, but if the player gets up, they're fine. They get their free kick, or if they fall down awkwardly and they get a concussion, it's going to be more severe. And like I said, I think that only comes down to optics, which isn't great, but it's just almost the kind of day we live in, unfortunately.
And it really is something that I think that the MRO really needs to look at, because I don't like that the outcome is how they're suspended. I think if you want to get rid of some of the things that are happening in the game that people are tired of, you need to start suspending them for doing it, not for what happens
Yeah.
to the opposing player that they do it to. So we'll have to see. I have not heard anything that Liam Ryan is going to appeal that particular one match ban. Again, it's only Tuesday, so we'll really have to see on that one. But in all, again, not such a great performance. The Bulldogs kind of solidify themselves is pretty much them, and the Demons have first and second pretty much locked up, except for maybe a little bit of wiggle room here or there. But man, the Eagles again, they're put in that little purgatory of sixth, seventh, and eighth. That a couple of bad losses and a couple of wins by 9 or 10, and you could see yourselves out of the finals.
That's tough. It really is tough, but at least if you're a Western Bulldogs fan, a lot of your worries that you might have had from the last 3-4 rounds are kind of going away, and you're becoming a lot more confident in this team once again, which I think they are easily one of the best teams in the league. They're going to be tough to beat come finals.